Hey everyone, it's Brian with TheUnlocker.com. Today we're here with three different phones on Verizon Wireless. We've got the Motorola Droid Razr, the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, and the Motorola Droid 4. If you're looking for a new device on Verizon, right now is a great time. They've got a great lineup including high-end devices. These are just three of those, but I do consider these to be three of the best phones that Verizon currently has, and they're going to appeal to different people in different ways for different reasons. So stay tuned. We're going to break down each phone, tell you what we like, what we don't like, and help you make the best decision possible. Alright, so first let's get started and talk about the specs of these devices. All of these are running Texas Instruments processors. However, not all of them are running the exact same processor. With the Droid Razr and the Droid 4, we've got a TI OMAP 4430 processor. For the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, we've got a TI OMAP 4460. Now, they're very similar chips. Really, there's not a whole lot of difference. You're probably not even going to feel the difference because they're all coming clocked at 1.2 gigahertz. However, the Motorola Droid Razr and the Droid 4, it's actually overclocked. Texas Instruments lists the 4430 as a 1.0 gigahertz processor speed, and both of these are overclocked to 1.2, whereas the Samsung Galaxy Nexus has a 1.2 gigahertz processor, and that 4460 that's in there is actually rated at 1.5 gigahertz. So Samsung's basically clocked this down to 1.2 gigahertz. So what that means is nothing really. However, if you are going to hack your phone, you're going to do a lot of that stuff, overclocking, you're going to have more options. You're going to be able to overclock it higher on the Samsung Galaxy Nexus versus the two Motorola devices. We're going to go ahead and run Quadrant Standard on these phones. Before we start, obviously benchmarks are not anything necessarily scientific. It gives us a good estimation of what the phones are, how they actually compare. But don't read too much into it because I've seen some pretty whacked out benchmarks before. Now please note the Samsung Galaxy Nexus has been heavily customized by myself, so you can see that I've got the red clock in the center. I've got the red buttons down here at the bottom. The buttons are smaller than they typically are, so I've definitely modded this phone, and I was going to change it back, but I figured for the purposes of this review it actually makes sense that I leave it, so I'll kind of get into that later. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to run the full benchmark on all three of these devices, and then we're going to come back and take a look at the scores. Alright, the Droid Razr came in with a score of 2225, the Galaxy Nexus had a score of 2589, and the Droid 4 had a score of 2486. For one more benchmark, we're going to do the Antutu benchmark, so we're going to go ahead and start that on all three devices, and then again we'll come back with the results. Alright, so we're back with the scores for the Antutu benchmark test, and this time the Droid Razr comes out on top with a score of 6130. The Samsung Galaxy Nexus is 5675, and the Motorola Droid 4 is 6102. So basically, it doesn't really tell us anything. Definitely shows us a benchmark. Samsung Galaxy Nexus was first on Quadrant, last on Antutu, but realistically you're going to get basically the same performance out of all three of these devices. Alright, let's talk for a minute about the displays. The display is becoming a more increasingly popular thing because of the HD displays, things like that. It's really a lot of emphasis is being placed on what kind of a display the device has versus just what size it is. So we'll get into that a little bit. The Motorola Droid Razr on the left is it has a 4.3-inch Super AMOLED display. The Samsung Galaxy Nexus has a 4.65-inch Super AMOLED display, and the Droid 4 has a 4.0-inch TFT, just an LCD display. So the loser in this battle is definitely the Droid 4. It can't compete in terms of size, it can't compete in terms of color. You can see it's a little bit more washed out. The blacks are not quite as black on the Droid 4, so that definitely has the worst display of these three devices. In terms of which one has the best display, I got to give it to the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. Colors look basically as good on both devices, but right now all three are set to max brightness. If you turn down the max brightness and you turn it on like automatic levels, right, so it's automatically adjusting, and you're in a fairly dark room where the display doesn't have to be as bright, the Motorola Droid Razr looks kind of a little bit yellow. It's got this yellowish tinge to it, whereas the Samsung Galaxy Nexus does not. Plus, the Samsung Galaxy Nexus with the bigger display, it wins. It's got a better resolution. We're talking 720p resolution on the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, whereas the Motorola Droid Razr and the Droid 4 both have QHD displays. So the resolution's not quite there with the Motorola products in comparison to the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, but the Motorola Droid Razr and the Droid Razr Max, they both share the same display. Really is a nice display and it looks beautiful. Alright, next let's talk about design. We've got the Motorola Droid Razr up first, and this is going to be the thinnest of the three devices. You can see, I mean, this is an incredibly thin device here. We do have this hump for the camera, and if you've heard of the Droid Razr Max, essentially this back piece, there is no hump. The phone is just as thick all the way around as it is basically at the camera. So to put it into perspective, the Droid Razr Max, which has a 3300 milliamp hour battery, and definitely should be talked about in this comparison because the internals are the same as this phone, and the design is the same. It's just a matter of the back here. And it's got a that big 3300 milliamp hour battery, which is almost double, and it is both phones are a really nice design. Depending on what you're looking for, you only do get the 4.3-inch screen, but you can see you've got an incredibly thin design, nice beveled edges. The phones, it's depending on what you like and what you don't like. I mean, it's definitely made out of some decent materials. The back feels really nice, and overall, I mean, it's an iconic design, and it's something that most people will definitely like. Now we've got the Samsung Galaxy Nexus here, and you can see this is a much thicker device. We'll bring the Droid Razr back in so you can kind of have a comparison of these two. And you can see that basically where the camera hump is, that's basically about the same size. Then the Droid Razr definitely slims down a little bit. The Samsung Galaxy Nexus is nothing necessarily to write home about. Again, some people are going to love this design, some people are not. Some people think it looks really nice, some other people think it looks very generic. So that's definitely up to interpretation. This does have a contour display, which really doesn't show up very well, and honestly it's very slight. But there is a little bit of a bend in this screen there, which is supposed to make the phone easier or more comfortable to hold to your ear while you're on phone conversations, which if anybody still makes and receive phone calls with their phone, they might appreciate that. Otherwise, you're not going to notice it. Alright, last but not least, we have the Motorola Droid 4, and this phone is definitely going to be thicker than the other two. Here's a little size comparison. We've got the Droid Razr on the left, the Galaxy Nexus in the middle, and the Droid 4 on the right. So you can see the Droid 4 is the thickest device, but it is also the only device that offers this full QWERTY keyboard, which is really exceptional to type on. The keys are edge lit. It's definitely the best keyboard I have ever played with on a mobile device, and I really think that's a huge selling point for a lot of people who aren't sure if they're comfortable typing on a pure touchscreen kind of input method. Maybe they want to have the keyboard just in case. I know that may appeal to a lot of people, so this phone is definitely gonna get those people that have become used to keyboards or just prefer the QWERTY keyboard. It does offer a nice design, and it is a much enhanced version of the Droid 3. It looks better, it feels better, it runs faster. So this is definitely a top-of-the-line phone. This is not a slouch, so Motorola's really done an excellent job with this device. Alright, we're going to touch briefly on the cameras. Both the Motorola Droid Razr and the Droid 4 both have 8 megapixel cameras. The Samsung Galaxy Nexus only has a 5 megapixel camera. all of them take pretty good shots. There's not really a huge difference. In terms of HD video performance, I would have to give the edge to the Motorola phones. The Samsung phone has a bit of a jello effect when recording 1080p, and it's definitely not perfect, but the selling point of the Galaxy Nexus certainly is not its camera. It's not really on par, and it's not a very, big difference. So if you're looking for strictly best camera quality in a phone, then the iPhone is still really the phone to beat. Maybe some of the HTC phones that are coming out, which have more pronounced cameras, and they're really putting more emphasis on the camera quality. But really, all three of these, you're going to get a decent cell phone camera, nothing incredible. Alright, let's talk briefly about the operating systems. Both the Motorola Droid Razr and the Droid 4 are running Android, which is version 2.3, and both of them have the Motorola's custom user interface thing. They used to call it Moto Blur. They did away with Moto Blur, but that's what they're running over top of it. So you can see here when we launch the app drawers, both of them look very similar. In fact, they're identical. We scroll left and right, and we've got this thing up at the top where we can sort all apps. We can have all apps show up, recent apps downloaded, or Verizon specific apps. And that's basically it. You've got some Motorola widgets here like this. This is a pretty cool widget. You can add your favorite contacts. This is something you won't find in a stock build. We don't have this widget on the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. Same thing over here with the Droid 4. Now with the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, it's the first phone to run Android 4.0, which is also known as Ice Cream Sandwich, and it's basically a phone operating system that also serves as a tablet operating system. So Google has kind of taken Honeycomb and Gingerbread, put them together, and this is basically what we get. There are some tweaks and performance enhancements. One of the enhancements or changes that they've made is now if you open your app drawer, you can see that we've got apps and we've got widgets. So your widgets are also located in here. So you can, once you're scrolling through your app tray, once you get to the very end, scroll again, and now you're onto your widgets, and you can easily take a widget like this. We'll take the 4x2 clock here, and we'll put that on our device. Click Add Widget, and that's how you add widgets to the Ice Cream Sandwich builds. Now both the Droid Razr and the Droid 4 are on Verizon's list as devices that will definitely receive the Ice Cream Sandwich update. When that's going to happen, we don't know. If you want the latest version of Android, the Samsung Galaxy Nexus is definitely your best choice. If you like to root your phone, you like to hack it, custom kernels, custom ROMs, custom themes, you like to change the clock, make it red, you like to change the button down here, because if you notice, the Galaxy Nexus doesn't have any capacitive buttons. If we shut off all of the displays here, you can see that we've still got our buttons here at the bottom of the Razr and the Droid 4. We have no buttons anywhere on the front for the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, and that's because it's baked right in to the operating system and to the screen. It's actually part of the screen. So the buttons still work. We still have the various buttons. And I'm running Nova Launcher just in case any of you are wondering. It's a little bit different than the stock build. But there are definitely more options with the Samsung Galaxy Nexus in terms of development that you don't have with the other devices. You can see even the lock screens are different. If I pull up the lock screen for both, you can see we've got some different toggles and different widgets here. Like I said, this is hacked and modified. Typically you only have camera and unlock. But there's some similarities and there's some definite differences. But if you're going to root and hack your device, the Samsung Galaxy Nexus is the only way to go. If you're looking for the device that has the best cellular radio and the best 4G radio, because all three of these again are all 4G phones, then the Motorola products definitely win. They have better radios. Motorola just makes better radios hands down. So When I lose 4G signal with my Samsung Galaxy Nexus, I usually still have 4G with either the Razr or the Droid 4. So, and it's not some, because there were some reports and rumors and things I've read online where Google basically said, or Samsung basically said, there's a problem with the way the bars are displayed. Actually, it might have been Verizon. I don't know. There's too many people, making excuses for things nowadays. No, there is an actual problem with the Galaxy Nexus radio. It's not the strongest radio. I mean, it's not a horrible problem, but in terms of losing 4G on the Samsung Galaxy Nexus and not losing it on the Droid Razr or the Droid 4, I've definitely found myself more times than not with 4G signal, strong 4G signal with the Motorola products, where I have no 4G signal with the Samsung Galaxy Nexus. Software updates may fix that, but I think it's probably more of a hardware issue. So unfortunately, that's the biggest knock against the Samsung Galaxy Nexus, is the fact that its 4G radio it's more power efficient for sure than earlier phones like the HTC Thunderbolt and things like that, but it's still not its strong point. So I hope this comparison helped you out. Like I said, there's a lot to consider. I'm trying to shove it into a short video, which has kind of drug on a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but there's a lot of things to talk about. If you've got one of these devices or have any recommendations, go to theunlocker.com and be sure to tell us about it. This is Brian with The Unlocker, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.